Sumit Agarwal, who's also been with SEBI, joins us at this stage. PKD Nambiar also with us, as also Sanjay Ashar, senior partner at Crawford. Mr. Agarwal, let me come to you next. Just building on that point mentioned by Mr. Gupta, the reliance on third-party reports, I think it is very, very important at this stage to stress that it's not as if the Supreme Court has said you can't come in with third-party information. All that the Supreme Court has said is that it has to be credible. You can't just pick something out of the air and say it is credible and then present it without an iota of information. So what has the Chief Justice said? The reliance on the OCCRP report, which is the Organized Crime and Corruption Reporting Project, right, is rejected, and reliance on a third-party organization report without any verification cannot be relied upon as a proof. So, Mr. Agarwal, how important is that statement?
Absolutely. Thank you. I believe that this is a very, very landmark judgment in the context of securities law. And for the first time, Supreme Court has gone into unsubstantiated allegations being made on the basis of some third-party report, which has not produced any material whatsoever, while challenging the SEBI's investigation capabilities or the findings of the 20 investigations so far, which were submitted to Supreme Court. In the petition, even the petitioners had challenged the impartiality of the expert committee members. And the Supreme Court has held in this matter that there is no valid ground or no substantiation that has been provided where Supreme Court should utilize its power, even though it has all the powers to intervene. This is not a case where the petitioners has been able to fulfill the requirement and the test of the law for Supreme Court to intervene. What Supreme Court interestingly has also said that the regulations which have been challenged, they have been challenged on the basis of some unsubstantiated grounds without providing any reasons that why these regulations should be intervened, because the regulation making power is purely in the domain of SEBI by virtue of SEBI Act. And SEBI Act provides the delegated powers to SEBI board to come up with these regulations. These regulations can definitely be challenged as long as somebody is able to demonstrate that there is some constitutional principle that has been violated, or there is something which is ultra vires of the SEBI Act. Nothing of that sort petitioners have been able to make out in this particular matter. Interestingly, another point which we must take away as a lesson from this Supreme Court judgment is that Supreme Court has said that the government of India as well as SEBI both needs to look into if there is any infraction of law by the Hindenburg report itself on short selling. And if they find it, then they are required to take action in accordance with law. So in that sense, I believe that so far whatever Adani Group has been saying has been validated. However, leaving one door open that yes, out of 22 investigations, 20 investigations have been complete. There are 2 other investigations, and the Solicitor General of India has made a statement that SEBI will take some time. Supreme Court has directed that the remaining 2 cases should be investigated preferably within 3 months. And if there is any finding of a contravention by even Adani Group, that must be taken to the logical conclusion in accordance with law. So therefore, to say that at this stage any clean chit has been provided to any party, I don't think that is the right reading of the Supreme Court judgment. However, Supreme Court clearly says that unless there is any specific material which provides a credible evidence, there is no reason for Supreme Court to put its power to replace what the SEBI's powers are. There is no question to doubt SEBI's probe, and there is no question to challenge the expert committee report. In fact, the expert committee report itself.
Let me just go quickly across to Sanjay Ashar as well. Mr. Ashar, the Supreme Court has rejected the arguments of petitioners regarding a conflict of interest on part of the members of the expert committee. This was another point which had been raised. Credibility of people on that special, on the committee formed by the Supreme Court, some of the most credible people in the country across different relevant walks of life. In some cases, there were question marks, on their involvement in this case. The Supreme Court rejecting that, how significant is that?
No, it's very important that the Supreme Court has clearly rejected the frivolous and a flimsy point that there was conflict of interest by some members of the committee. I'm glad that Supreme Court touched upon that and provided an absolutely clean chit to the committee as also to SEBI that there was no conflict of interest as such. And overall, we very welcome the judgment. In fact, Mr. Gupta and Sumit have rightly covered the points. I would only add one more point, that the reports such as of those of Hindenburg's report there should be some monitoring, some discipline on these reports. Otherwise, anybody can just issue such report and put the entire investor community into a complete dizzy. It can't be that the small investors suffer because of such reports. And who's going to make good the loss which the small investors have suffered, the retail investors have suffered? Overall, the investor community has suffered. It's all, the starting point is the Hindenburg report. Had there been some discipline on such reports, then such situation would not have arisen. So 3 points. One is we very welcome the judgment. As Sumit said, that it's a very good precedent as far as the judgment is concerned. Number two, there should be some discipline on the issuance of such reports. And number three, on the conflict of interest, also Supreme Court has clarified the position and given a clean sheet as far as the conflict of interest is concerned. So overall, it's all very good, and we very welcome this particular judgment. Thank you.
PKD Nambiar, the Chief Justice, saying that a reliance on newspaper reports and third-party organizations in order to question the regulator, SEBI, doesn't inspire confidence. They can be treated as inputs but not conclusive evidence to doubt the SEBI probe. Isn't this really at the heart of it? Because there was so much information which was brought in first in terms of the Hindenburg report, then what OCCRP had to say, then third-party reports. It's not as if the court has said that you can't introduce this, but it has to be based on something. So the question to the petitioners is, how have you examined as a petitioner in this case the credibility of the information which is being brought out by these third parties? And it seems that they've not done that.
Well, Vishnu, I have been at least on your channel maintaining for almost 1 year that it is not like one report comes up and or entire ecosystem, financial ecosystem or investor sentiments are going away. This is something which was always politically motivated or something which was planned very well, not just in India, internationally. And this was, my stand was always on the same. I think almost all of the panelists were talking about today's Supreme Court verdict. I would rather like to go to one step further. So what was the reason for the political forces in this country to make this as such a big effect? And where do they stand today when it comes to the report, that amount of money, not just from the retail investors, also from the entire investor community, the lakhs of people who works for the Adani Group, and the kind of suffering as an Indian economy which has which got, or even a bad name in the international market. I think that needs to have a thorough probe. And today's Supreme Court order clearly says that the jurisdiction of, they don't want to get into the SEBI's jurisdiction, and SEBI is a professional organization doing its job very well, and there is nothing to be alarming, or there is nothing to be, the Supreme Court needs to be intervened. But the bottom line is that today you should ask the question to the people who have made this Adani means India, India means Adani, Adani means corruption, Adani means Modi. Those kind of political jibes, even yesterday evening, I was on one of the channels, they were talking about Adani. So I think the bottom line today is that the Supreme Court, our country has got a judiciary and a very strong independent judiciary, which is also saying that these requires such kind of the reports, whether it is motivated or whatever way, what is the meaning of these reports, we don't know. So I think before the media takes up, before the opposition takes up such kind of reports and celebrate to affect our economy, it's the time for all of us to have...
PKD, just give me half a second, because this is something substantive, as you mentioned, for the Adani Group. lakhs of small investors in that group, the lakhs of employees in this group. Gautam Adani has tweeted just a few moments back. Let's pull that out and get the first reactions from the Adani Group. The Honorable Supreme Court's judgment shows that truth has prevailed. Satyamev Jayate. I'm grateful to those who stood by us. Our humble contribution to India's growth story will continue. Jai Hind. So that's an important statement from Gautam Adani over there. We're going to take a short break, come back with the very latest. But before I take that break, just another key point mentioned by the Supreme Court, which said, before concluding, public interest jurisprudence was developed to provide access to ordinary citizens. Petitions which lack adequate research and rely on unsubstantiated reports cannot be accepted. We'll take a break, come back with more.
Different people believe in different things. In cricket, some hail the king, some believe in God. Some wait for Mr. Right, some believe in swiping right. Some run away from risk, others run after it. Some make a career in a company, some make a career out of building companies. But when it comes to money, everybody believes in only one thing: profit, profit, profit. And for profit, watch only NDTV Profit. We all love money.
तीर्थों की तीर्थ, भगवान श्री राम की नगरी अयोध्या, सदियों के पुण्यों का परिणाम, भगवान श्री राम का धाम अयोध्या। 7 सिया के सिंहासन पर अंबर तनकर बैठेंगे, अवधपुरी के जनमानस के प्रेम में सनकर बैठेंगे। नमस्कार, मैं अनामिका जैनंबर स्वागत करती हूं आप सभी का मेरा उत्तर प्रदेश, नया उत्तर प्रदेश में 22 जनवरी को प्राण प्रतिष्ठा हो जाएगी और भगवान श्री राम बाल रूप में सिंहासन पर स्थापित हो जाएंगे। भगवान श्री राम मंदिर और उसके
सोशल मीडिया पे सच और झूठ के बीच का फर्क बहुत कम लोग कर पाते हैं,
पर सच्ची खबरों के लिए सब एनडीटीवी पर भरोसा करते हैं,
क्योंकि खबरों की दुनिया में सबसे बड़ा भरोसा है एनडीटीवी नेटवर्क।
तो खबरों के लिए देखते रहे एनडीटीवी।
और फुल टू एंटरटेनमेंट के लिए खो गए हम कहाँ?
ओनली ऑन नेटफ्लिक्स
26 दिसंबर से देखिएगा जरूर।
Do a rapid fire round about Biocon, just to give viewers a flavor of the breadth and depth of what Biocon is doing. And Karan Johar doesn't have the copyright on rapid fire, but we are going to be a rapid fire. So you have Asia's largest insulin factory in Malaysia, right? Biocon?
Yes.
Yes. So why Malaysia?
So I think, insulin requires a very high, energy and water requirement. And at the time when we were trying to scale up our insulin technology, we had a big challenge in terms of accessing both potable water and energy at the level we wanted to. And if you remember in the sort of the 2010, 2015 kind of times, there was a very severe environmental law which made it very difficult for us to get timely approvals to start such ventures.
Okay.
And therefore we went to Malaysia, which had everything available to us, both in terms of regulatory needs and access to these very important critical requirements of insulin production.
But it is the largest in Asia. 2022, Biologics entered a deal to buy the biosimilars business of Viatris for $3.3 billion. The integration is complete ahead of schedule. Again, just give me a quick sort of insight into the thought process behind that deal, because it really hammers home the point of how global Biocon and Biocon Biologics are.
I think that is the most important transformational, event that you have just mentioned, because Biocon was partnered with Viatris for over a decade to basically develop do the research and development and manufacturing of these very important class of biologics drugs called biosimilars. And, Viatris was the commercial partner. We were the sort of research, development and manufacturing partner. We were capturing only a third of the value. They were capturing the rest of the value. By acquiring this business, we capture 100% of the value and we truly become a globally integrated biopharmaceutical company and a leading company when it comes to biosimilars.
Welcome back. Breaking news that we've been tracking. A landmark judgment of the Supreme Court of India in the Hindenburg case. Gautam Adani has now tweeted. He says that the Honorable Supreme Court's judgment shows that truth has prevailed. Satyamev Jayate. I'm grateful to those who stood by us. Our humble contribution to India's growth story will continue. Jai Hind. What exactly has the Chief Justice of India? In fact, there were 3 judges of the Supreme Court who looked at it. They've said that the power of the Supreme Court to enter the regulatory framework of the Securities and Exchange Board of India, which is SEBI, which is investigating the allegations raised in the Hindenburg report, is limited. They've said that SEBI has completed an investigation in 20 out of 22 matters. Taking into account the assurance of the Solicitor General, the Supreme Court has directed SEBI to complete the investigation in the other 2 cases within a period of 3 months. The Supreme Court holds that there is no ground to transfer the investigation from SEBI to a special investigating team. In other words, categorically reaffirming their faith in institutions, in this case the institution being SEBI. The Supreme Court that the OCCRP report, the OCCRP stands for Organized Crime and Corruption Reporting Project, the OCCRP report, a subsequent report to the Hindenburg report, and which was something which was raised by the petitioners as additional evidence which seemed to suggest wrongdoing in the case by the Adani Group, cannot be taken into account to doubt the SEBI investigation. The Chief Justice said that the reliance on this OCCRP report is rejected. Reliance on a third-party organization report without any verification cannot be relied upon as proof. The Chief Justice says there is no ground to transfer the probe in this case from SEBI. The court has rejected the arguments of petitioners regarding a conflict of interest on part of members of the expert committee. The Chief Justice says the Government of India and SEBI shall take into consideration the recommendations of the committee to strengthen the interest of Indian investors. What is the committee? The committee was formed by the Supreme Court when the allegations raised by Hindenburg were raised for the first time, to be a party in addition to SEBI to offer perspective to the Supreme Court as an independent body and entity on whether there was any merit in the arguments which had been raised. This special body, the special committee formed by the Supreme Court, categorically stated that the allegations were essentially not valid, they were frivolous in many cases, and backed SEBI, and that's what the Supreme Court has done in its final order today. The Chief Justice saying that the reliance on newspaper reports and third-party organizations to question the statutory regulator does not inspire confidence. They can be treated as inputs but not conclusive evidence to doubt the SEBI probe. I'm joined by Sanjay Sumit at this stage. Thanks very much for being with us. Your thoughts on what the implications of this are likely to be for the Indian markets. I ask this because so much of investor wealth, so much of confidence in the Indian markets had been wiped out. With a judgment as strong as this, what are the implications for the markets?
Mr. Ashok?
So Sumit Agarwal, would you go ahead and take that? Yeah.
Yes, sure. See, this judgment for the first time puts in some accountability to anybody who approaches the doors of the Supreme Court. The court, as much as all of us are discussing and talking about that this is a clean chit to Adani Group, well, as I see it, this is not a judgment on Adani Group, rather it is a judgment on the SEBI investigation on Adani and the expert committee which had provided its report and views on the process as well as the legalities of the SEBI's process. In this particular matter, for the first time, Supreme Court is saying that if any third party is questioning the jurisdiction as well as the legislative mandate of SEBI, then one has to do it with some evidence. And if the evidence is not being there, at least the credible pointers have to be given, and there cannot be merely on the basis of some conjectures or speculation, court will exercise its extraordinary power into the regulatory domain of SEBI. So to this extent, for the first time, Supreme Court has belled the cat.
All right. I just wanted to go across to Sanjay Ashar as well. Now, you've seen what Gautam Adani had tweeted a little while back. He seems to suggest, and let's just pull out that tweet one more time for our viewers. I mean, it's different from what Sumit Agarwal says, that it's not, something which endorses the Adani Group. Gautam Adani says the Honorable Supreme Court's judgment shows that truth has prevailed. Satyamev Jayate. Sanjay Ashar, would you say that, in fact, this is, a clean sheet for the Adani Group? Adani himself, Gautam Adani, saying, and let's just have that previous line once again, where he says he thanks people for backing or endorsing or supporting the Adani Group. A humble contribution to India's growth story is what he refers to as well, and that truth has prevailed. So, Mr. Sanjay Ashar, how do you see this?
No, I would agree with what Mr. Adani has tweeted, Mr. Gautam Bhai Adani has tweeted. And yes, it is a clean sheet to the Adani Group, barring those two investigations which SEBI has to complete. But otherwise, 20 investigations.
Sorry, go ahead, sir. All right, sorry, we'll just, we'll fix that line, come back to him in a moment. I just want to go through a few of the other points which the Chief Justice mentioned or spoke about in the order. Reliance on newspaper reports and third-party organizations to question the statutory regulator does not inspire confidence. They can be treated as inputs, but not conclusive evidence to doubt the SEBI probe. Before concluding, public interest jurisprudence was developed to provide access to ordinary citizens. Petitions which lack adequate research and rely on unsubstantiated reports cannot be accepted. Do we have Sanjay Ashar? Mr. Ashar, we lost your line for a moment. Go ahead with your thoughts. Is this a clean sheet for the Adani Group?
It is a clean sheet. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, it is a clean sheet to the Adani Group, barring those two investigations which are pending, which SEBI will complete due course. But otherwise, Mr. Adani is absolutely right. Satyameva Jayate. The truth will prevail, and the truth has prevailed. And the Supreme Court has given the Twitter.
All right. We're going to take a short break at this stage, try and fix that line, come back with the key stories. The Adani Group, Gautam Adani saying that truth has prevailed in this case. Sanjay Ashar adding that in fact it is a clean sheet for the Adani Group. That's the bottom line over here. But the references, the remarks made by the Supreme Court, all of them seem to suggest that the investor has been protected, the Adani Groups, the allegations against the Adani Group are seen to be perhaps biased, perhaps inaccurate. Inaccurate would be the correct word to be used, and that the institutions in our country, namely SEBI, need to be protected.